we have survived the earthquake in April in Nepal, and I was with my daughter and with my partner, who's Nepali and from a small village. And after the day of the earthquake, he left in the afternoon to go to the village to see his family. He has a motorbike, so he left on the motorbike. And Miriam and me, my daughter and me, we stayed in Kathmandu with our landlord's family. And the first night we stayed in a tent outside. Or it was not really a tent, it was more like just a plastic tarpaulin, because then it also started to rain. And there was a thunderstorm, which was super scary because at some point one of the thunders came together with an aftershock, so the people really panicked. And of course it was horrible for all the people that suddenly had to stay outside and didn't have a cover. But we stayed that first night under this tarpaulin, and the second day as well, we stayed almost all the time outside. We tried to move inside the house, but then there were so big aftershocks that it always drove us out again. And I remember at some point my friend who was with us, who's from Germany, she wanted to get her bag from Tamil, from the tourist part, because she had checked into a hotel before all this happened. And her flight was the day after. So she wanted to get her bag, and we all thought, okay, now it's getting better. And she left. And we were outside on the way back to our apartment, and there was this huge aftershock. It was 6.4 or something, so that is really a big earthquake. And we were in the middle of the road between shaking buildings, and we didn't know where to go. So and Nepali family that we've never seen before kind of took us in and brought us to their shelter. So we stayed there, and we tried to stay outside for this whole day. But because the network was down, I couldn't contact Tilak, my partner. I couldn't contact my parents. Luckily, I had called them immediately after the earthquake to tell them that we're still alive, but that was all. I couldn't call them again. And we had no idea about the scope of this whole thing. We've all seen some buildings in Kathmandu that had collapsed. Actually, the road to our house was completely blocked because a workshop had collapsed. But we didn't really know what had happened in the countryside and other parts of the country. We didn't know. So after the second day outside, and the third day, I just couldn't bear it anymore because I didn't know what had happened to Tilak because I couldn't call him. And there were so many aftershocks. There was rumors that the road to Kaule, to our village, was completely destroyed, that it had gone down in the second aftershock when he was already gone. So I didn't know what happened, and I just couldn't stay anymore. Just sitting in that tent and looking in what happened. So I left my daughter with my friend who was still with us, and I walked to Balaju, which is the part of the town from where you leave to our village. And there we know some people who work for a bigger organization that also have some projects in the area. And I went there to see if they were at the office, and their office was safe, so they work with volunteers, so they had brought all their volunteers into their office, and they were all staying there together with their families because that was kind of the only safe house they still had. And they had a big yard, so they were able to run out, so they were all there. And they said that they had gone out with their Jeep once to the countryside to see what happened, and they said it was devastating, that all the houses were collapsed and the roads were not safe and everything. So of course I got more scared and more scared, and they said in the afternoon they would drive out again. So I asked them if I can come with them because I really wanted to see our village, and I wanted to see if I can find Tilak because I couldn't call him. So in the afternoon, first I went home again to arrange that my daughter could stay with my landlord because they were of course at home. And then I bought some plastics, some food, stuff, I brought all our food from the apartment because I thought people can need it, because the problem was that not all houses had collapsed, but the people were too scared to go into their houses, so they didn't have food for the moment. And then I walked back to Balaju and we went on the Jeep all together, and it was really scary because we went on this road and it was partly collapsed, and then the electricity poles had fallen over. And at one point I remember that two of us had to get out of the car, and because we didn't have anything else, we took a plastic bottle to keep the electricity line from the car. so we could pass. But it was very scary. And we reached Kaule, and I met some people. I saw some houses, and I saw that the people that were very close to me, I met them, and I saw they were all alive. But I also found out that Tilak had gone back to Kathmandu in the morning to meet me. But we had missed each other just on the road. But at least I knew he was okay. So then we went back again, and we were all met at home. And then I found out that actually Tilak's family was okay, but one of his best friends had died because his house had completely collapsed. He was in there with his son and with his brother's daughter, and they all had died. And so Tilak was devastated and he was very traumatized and passive. He didn't do anything. He was just sitting there. And I'm not like that. So I kind of felt the need to do something, because when I get so overwhelmed, I feel like I need to take action to kind of overcome that feeling. So the next day, he went back to the village, and I just thought, okay, what do they need? Shelter. So I went to Tamil and went from one trekking shop to the next and bought all tents I could get my hands on. And that day I also, for the first time, had the opportunity to call the organization that I'm working for. And they said, because I had no idea what was happening. I didn't know if it was in the press or anything. But of course it was in the press because it was a big earthquake, just that because I had no internet and I had no radio and I had no news access, I didn't know all of that. But my organization told me, okay, we have donations, there is money, do whatever you think is right, and just go ahead and buy whatever you can get your hands on. So that was like my signal to go. And then I started buying tents, and after 2 days we started buying food as well. So we actually managed in the first month after the earthquake to get shelter for 300 families. So we got many plastics, actual trekking tents for the pregnant women and the small children, then some medicines because people started getting sick, and especially food, like every family got 15 kilo of rice and some lentil and stuff like that. Then we also organized a health camp, so people would get checked out, and a children's camp, because what we saw very quickly is that everybody was just traumatized. So the parents were just sitting there doing nothing, and the children, of course, they had seen their part, they had seen dead people, but they had lost their houses. There was no school, so they didn't know where to go, so they started playing in the broken houses. So we thought it's good to just keep them busy for some time and give them the possibility to express themselves, maybe with drawing or just to play, just to get their head around something else. So we organized a 12-day kids camp where up to 100 kids came every day to play and to eat as well, because they got like a lunch there. So I was quite busy because it was also very difficult, because even though everybody knew this earthquake was about to happen, it was bound, because the Himalayas are just an active zone, like a tectonically active zone. So everybody knew, but the government was not prepared. There was not enough shelter, there was not enough food, nothing. So I saw actually fist fights for plastic. The situation in Kathmandu was so tense because everybody was trying to get tents and shelter. And I'm very lucky that we were able to actually get so many tents without getting into a major fight or something like that. That's kind of how we spent the first month, trying to get all this stuff together. And I think we actually did a lot, but of course it was not closely enough to reach everybody. And I think it was also one of the hardest times of my life, because I was also a victim, but at the same time I had to be active and try to support people. So I was very torn at some times.